much, and thank you, Julian and Leon, and of course Mike Dalton for putting all this together and getting me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to the insurance industry. I'll try and keep it as quick as I can. If anybody's got any questions as we go, just let me know. I'm going to give you guys and girls a background on what UPRT is and why it's so important, and how insurance can have a significant effect on the whole program. So I found that Vanessa, who was from Aon, when she attended the event in August, she found it very informative and she learned a lot. So hopefully you will all become a little bit more educated about why this is important. So we'll make a start. A little bit about myself. I'm a lamey by trade, did 16 years in the Air Force, worked in Canada, in the Middle East, Papua New Guinea, and did some work with Qantas Link. And my wife and I have started, thanks to COVID, we got the push off the edge, and we're operating a flight school for GA and RA, and flight safety solutions for a number of solutions that are coming down the pipe, particularly CASAR 43. From an operational point of view, grade 1 flight instructor with a bunch of tickets there. RAOs, previously CFI, my wife's taken over that role now so that I can free up a little bit to do some of this stuff. We do banner towing, chief pilot for that. There's only 4 operators in Australia, and used to tow, used to be an air experience instructor in gliding many years ago at RAF Base Laverton, which no longer exists. The airfield's not there anymore, and tow. So what is UPRT? Well, it's basically training to combat loss of control. I've come up with a training tool. There's a lot more to this triangle, and it's predicated upon the fire triangle. If anybody knows what the fire triangle is, basically these are the 3 components that we're familiar with about stalls at this point in time, and we'll talk more about that in a sec. So we'll just do a little bit of history about loss of control. This gentleman is Otto, and in 1891 he was the poster child for flight safety back in the day, and he experienced loss of control on a daily basis. So too did the Wright brothers, and perhaps Gustav Whitehead, if anybody's a bit up to speed with who actually flew the first aeroplane. That's a bone of contention. 1912, a gentleman called Wilfred Park. He was the first pilot to survive an unintentional spin. Didn't know what the hell was going on, but he lived. So he was able to give some insight. Harry Hawker, we all know about him. Hawker Industries, served the RAF for many years. He was the first man to survive an intentional spin. And apparently he ran out of the trees yelling, "I know what to do, I know what to do, if only I had the guts to do it." And what he was talking about was pushing the stick forward when the windscreen was full of planet. Incidentally, Harry Hawker died a few years later in a stall spin accident or an engine failure after takeoff. A bit ironic. 1943 US Navy training film, Quit Stalling or Spin In. It goes for about 53 minutes. You can find it on YouTube. It talks a lot about airspeed and a little tiny bit about load factor, not a lot, and absolutely nothing about angle of attack. Now, the interesting statement at the beginning of this movie is that the narrator says that in the 2 years since Pearl Harbor, there's been more loss of life from training stall spin accidents than actual combat. So it's a serious thing. Air France 447, well, we all know about that one. That was pretty much one of the major turning points about upset prevention and recovery. How the hell did this aeroplane stall from 42,000 feet with 2 experienced pilots at the helm? DA 40, we know about that one. And this year, Twin Otter on floats in Canada, loss of control. This is a snapshot from the video. Very interesting synopsis on that one. So basically, when's the next one going to occur? It's not a question of if it'll happen, it's a question of when. And it's not real good. So let's have a look at the stall triangle that I showed you before. What did people think about stalls? Well, back in the day, everybody knew about airspeed. However, understanding load factor only really come in after the war, after the Second World War. And then angle of attack, well, we didn't really start learning about it until after Air France 447. We had an idea about what it was before 447, but it's very pronounced now. So what are the causes and how do we mitigate it? So the causes of a loss of control are environmental systems or pilot induced, and we can mitigate them by raising awareness and implementing prevention. And at the very last bit, put the recovery in. If we fail to do all those, we will have an event. And that's when we start talking to you people. So they all feed into the funnel. We all know about the Swiss cheese, and we've got these barriers here like this. So for the if we're flying the airplane and we're aware of our situation and we know how to prevent it, then we're okay. But if we don't know how to prevent it, then we slip through. If we get into an upset and we don't know how to recover, we're going to go through and we're going to have a loss of control event. So with the awareness, the environment would be turbulence, wake turbulence, wind shear, systems, flight controls, auto flight, pitch control, all of these things you have seen. Pilot, the pilot list is bigger than all the other ones together because there's a pilot involved. And we can educate people with knowledge, planning, and currency. With the prevention, aeronautical decision-making, these are the things that we need to educate people upon. Risk management, engage training for perceived events, and adjust as required to improve the situation. That's how we can prevent that. Expect and manage startle and surprise, continue threat and error management, and early recognition and intervention will pay dividends. So I'm just looking at just showing you this picture of a graph here. This represents the maneuverability of an aeroplane. So an aeroplane can pitch 90 degrees nose up, 90 degrees nose down. It can roll 180 degrees to the left and 180 degrees to the right. It doesn't matter whether it's an RAOS aeroplane or a 747 A380. It doesn't matter. They will do this. However, when we do our pilot training, we train our pilots to be 25 degrees nose up, 10 degrees nose down, and up to 60 degrees angle of bank. That's all we train them to be in. And for RPL and RAOS students, it's typically inside the blue up to about 45 degrees angle of bank. If you go outside these boxes, you've entered an upset. And this is an environment where we haven't been trained in. The red box represents 11% of the total capability of the airplane. So what we've got is we've got a whole bunch of people out there that are only trained to operate their machine in 11% of its capability. So if we need somebody to recover after an upset, there's a few problems that we encounter. If the pilot enters an unfamiliar flight environment, they've probably got an attitude or an angle of bank they've never seen before. Undesired aircraft state, total loss of aircraft state awareness, particularly if the nose is pointing straight down. That brings on bigger problems. And there are invalid assumptions because there could be inputting inappropriate controls, over controls, and stressing the airframe. We need to train appropriate recovery procedures, and they are not generic. They can change across a whole range of different aircraft, size, shape, and capability. These corrective actions, we've got two windows. We've got a prevention window and a recovery window. Prevention window is not time critical. We have a large period of time to assess the situation before it arises, typically. Level 2 is time critical. If we don't initiate a recovery in the appropriate manner, in the appropriate sequence as quickly as possible, we're likely to lose the aeroplane and the occupants. So if we look at back here, we've got all of these things, the awareness from the environment systems and pilot, and we train people on knowledge, planning, and currency. If we get an aeroplane that does not have, or we get a pilot who doesn't have the awareness of where they are situationally, they'll slip through the first Swiss cheese and they'll need to exercise the prevention, which is to make the appropriate decisions and engage the training that they've received. The startle, surprise, continued threat and urge management, and early recognition. If they do that, then they're going to recover from the situation and they'll be okay. If they don't, they're going to slip through the next safety block and they've entered an upset. Now, if they do know how to recover, they need to initiate the recovery procedure immediately. If they're able to do that, they will climb away and everything will be okay. If they are unable to do that, then they have a loss of control event. So when we use the entered and upset as a benchmark, our level 1 is not time critical. So we've got upset prevention knowledge if they understand the situational awareness to a larger degree than what they do in their initial training. However, level 2 is time critical and they need the appropriate upset recovery skills if they can't utilize the prevention. Now, the time critical using this, the old saying is a pilot uses his or hers expert knowledge and experience to avoid situations where they have to use their expert skill. But we find time and time again that the upset recovery skills are not being taught and used incorrectly. The picture on the left is from New Zealand CAA, a spin avoidance piece of information. And this statement here, in most aircraft, there's only about 3 seconds to do all of this, the spin recovery. Minimum altitude loss for a textbook recovery will be about 1,000 to 1,500 feet. Now, I was talking yesterday with a very experienced grade 1 instructor who's helped us along our way. He's been flying for many, many years, ex-Air Force. And I have some technology that I'm going to show you shortly. And I said, here is a trace of my flight from a spinning endorsement. And my rate of descent, my vertical speed when I was in a fully developed spin was around 8,000 feet per minute down. So that's pretty significant and you need to take the action immediately. So that's, of course, assuming you've got the time and the altitude to do anything. Anything that happens below 2,000 feet, certainly in the circuit area, it doesn't matter if you're Matt Hall or Paul Bennett. It doesn't matter. If you enter a fully developed spin, you're done. So here's a snapshot picture of an actual loss of control event. This is not photoshopped. It was somebody taking photos of the aeroplane, and this was 7 seconds from the time he stalled to the time he was vertically down about to enter somebody's backyard. So there's a number of resources. As I said, Air France 447 was a trigger for upset prevention and recovery, and it spawned a whole bunch of guidance material from regulators. ICAO Doc 111 is the benchmark. FAA, EASA, which has mandated from pilot training for upset recovery for all commercial pilots. The leaders in the world, they're the first regulatory body to do that. And even CASA's got guidance material on that. However, it's for commercial pilots, multi-crew license, airline, high altitude aircraft. It's not applicable to RA and GA. However, it's the only information that we've got. So people who are performing this training they should be using this guidance material. And I was speaking to CASA this morning, and the gentleman, John Frierson, who is part of one of the heads of the UPRT cell, he reiterated to me, he said, you need to make sure that if anybody's trying to do this, that they utilize the guidance material supported. If they're not, then they're not doing their job appropriately. So we've got a pyramid here. And as I said, EASA is changing the way that they are training their commercial pilots and ATPLs. Regulatory change is underway. But the problem is we're not teaching the law of primacy. And RPC, RPL, PPL, and student pilots aren't getting the benefit from this training. And therefore, we're having to retrain pilots, is what we're finding. Commercial pilots who come to do instructor ratings to get a spin endorsement or want to do aerobatics, we're having to retrain them. So it's a problem of primacy. So back in August, Mike Dalton and Vanessa from Aon, they attended a conference that I put on. And the reason why I put this conference on was because I was seeing a lot of students who had performed upset prevention and recovery training from other providers. And I was finding that their knowledge and skills were deficient to what I thought was appropriate. And I want to really make it really, really clear here that I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I was seeing some items of information and training that contradicted all of those documents that I just presented to you from ICAO and EASA and FAA. And I thought, why are people teaching things different? Maybe I'm not doing it right. I didn't know. So I prudently put my hand in the air and said, hey, how about everybody get together and we'll just talk about to make sure we're all on the same page. And I was blown away by the support from CASA. I was blown away by the support from Mike Dalton and Vanessa and also other providers. We had people from Matt Hall's camp come up, people from all over the place come from Melbourne and Sydney and all over the place. And it was really, really good. There's a lady who flies with Matt Hall. Her name's Emma. I can't remember her last name. But when we were having beers and nibblies at the end, she said it was so wonderful to see people put their commercial interests aside to do something good. And I thought that was just fantastic. So there's a lot of reasons why we did it. And I went away knowing that I wasn't on drugs. I felt like I wasn't on drugs because thought I was teaching the wrong thing myself, but it turns out that we are. So the problem with the data is that they're built for FAR 25 aircraft, airliners, but we're dealing with a FAR 23 aircraft. And there's different requirements, and we'll talk more about those shortly. The UPRT Providers Conference had two goals to discuss loss of control in flight awareness, primacy, and to improve pilot competency. The process to discuss about developing a UPRT syllabus of training to deliver agreed competencies for the GARA sector, basically instill the primacy and insert suitable UPRT elements into the current VFR syllabus. And the benefit would be to reduce loss of life and hull and reduce insurance costs, which are a big driver in our industry. So we'll talk more about that. Consequently, after that, CASA invited myself and Jeremy Miller from UPR and Shane Tobin from UPRT and Neil Schaefer from RAOS to attend the CASA UPRT workshop. And we were given a very large slice of the speaking time, which I thought was very reflective of their opinion about where the training needs to be implemented. And so the room was full of Jetstar, Qantas, Virgin, all of the big airlines who are doing what they're doing. But we took up a whole bunch of time talking about primacy. And what was really, really good from there at the tea breaks was that we had people from the airline industry coming to us and saying, it's about time somebody started teaching people to do things. We get people who are graduating and they can't do crap. and we have to retrain them, which is a problem. So at the UPRT workshop for CASA, I did up another triangle. Triangles work pretty good. Most people can remember 3 things, and if they're all situated together, it makes it good. Training standards, culture, and misinformation is a problem that we're seeing at our level. So training standards, I've got a whole slideshow about how the training standards haven't changed since 1918. We're not keeping up with the changing world, and I'll reference back to the Quit Stalling or Spin In video by the US Navy in 1943. They didn't know anything about it, and we're still not really catching up with what's going on. We've had a degradation of the pilot training syllabus over years by the removal of spin recovery in the 30s, and just before the 1940s, you had to demonstrate entry and recovery from a spin on 3 occasions. Now we just have to be able to recognise developing entry towards a spin, but we don't actually do it. The structure, the recreational aviation has a syllabus of training, but it's very delivered in different ways by different people. Some of the instructors are out of industry, so like they might work at Bunnings on the weekday and then they go and be a flight instructor on the weekend. RAOS is doing its best to do instructor development, but we need to do more. In the professional world, same deal. The syllabus is there, but people are teaching it different. Vet fee, trained to a price tag, not to a standard. These slides on the triangle here is straight from what I delivered to CASA. So I was expecting them to get me to leave my license on the bench when I left. Then they can borrow more to become an instructor and teach the next vet fee intake. We got a serious degradation of training skills through that vet fee training circle. Standards, what is competent? We're going to talk about that in just a couple of seconds. Instructors and examiners with differing opinions and students with different expectations. So this is a copy of the RPC, the RAOS flight training syllabus from our school. And most instructors who know what they're talking about will talk about the big 5 lessons: primary and secondary effects of control, straight and level, climbing, descending, and turns. If you can't do those, you shouldn't even enter stalling or circuits. However, what we see here, and this is a training record from a student who came to us and advised us that he'd been solo and he wanted to continue his training. Now, if we look at this flight entry here, we've got 0.8 hours, and he had a trial instructional flight, takeoffs, climbing and descending, turns, glides, stalls, circuits to the flare in 0.8, which was, I just couldn't believe it. This little symbol here is a competency, a 5-scale competency. And if you score a 3, it's like a 5 is learning, 4 needs more practice, 3 is competent to solo standard, 2 is competent to a certificate standard, and 1 is for an instructor. So after another 1.6 hours, whoever this instructor is deemed that this student was competent for solo after 2.4 hours of flight training. And then he went on his first solo at 5.7. So different level of competency. We admit that the information that we give to pilots while they're training is like drinking from a fire hose. And this is a major problem, because all that stuff that's going past and doesn't go in is probably the important stuff. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Misinformation, social media is a big problem. I see people, and you guys and girls have been on the social media yourselves. You're talking, you're seeing posts from people who are asking questions, particularly in the maintenance side of things. And that's a whole nother ball game. I got a whole nother set of slideshows on maintenance. People who are maintaining aeroplanes asking, what type of sealant should I be using? Oh, did anybody know where I could get a screw for this? The system at which we maintain our aeroplanes is just out of control. The content, anything is fair game. They'll just put information up about anything. The source data, there is no source data. It's whatever the individual feels like posting. Validation, there's no authentication of data. Credibility, the more followers, the more credibility you got. It's an unfortunate reality. So we talked about in the triangle that speed was the main contributor to loss of control with regards to the stall. And we've just proved that load factor and angle of attack is as equally as important. So speed is not the answer. So we talk about misinformation. Again, this is part of the slides that I gave to the CASA workshop, and I wasn't afraid to put it up there. ATSB, they, on their website, they have these information sheets about avoidable accidents. And this is number 3, managing partial power loss in a single engine aeroplane after takeoff. Cool, great subject. However, the statement says here, what is the most important is that the primary focus be on maintaining airspeed to prevent stalling. That is not the reason why an aeroplane stalls. An aeroplane stalls because it exceeds its angle of attack, the critical angle of attack. No more, no less. But there's no information, not all the appropriate information is there. This is CASA's spin avoidance training pamphlet. I've got a poster right here. It's this poster right there. Oh, I'm fading out. So it says turns in slow flight. It's easy to be distracted, let the airspeed drop. And climbing turns may distract from speed control. Not appropriate information. It's misleading information. Culture, we've got a minimalist approach. What's the minimum I have to do to become a pilot? Why do I need to know about systems knowledge? It won't happen to me about emergencies. Maintenance, I keep coming back to maintenance because it's part of the whole problem. I changed my oil, isn't that enough? Recency and currency. I don't have much time, but I've got my 3 landings in 90, so I'm good, right? Expectation, pilots coming, had some pilots come from vet fee school who fly FADEC controlled aeroplanes with autopilots and Garmin 1000s. Stick them in a Cessna 172 because they wanted to get Cessna time for a job. Couldn't fly the aeroplane. Didn't understand how the mixture worked. Couldn't read the steam gauges. Very interesting exercise. Perception, pilot shortage. I'll just get in here and get a job straight away. There's no desire for hunting for a job. We've been doing banners out of Brisbane since 2012, and we probably had 4 or 5 people over that period, 10 years, 4 or 5 people who walk in the door with a resume saying, can I get a job? And Southeast Queensland would have to be the biggest cluster of vet fee schools in Australia. Top Gun Effect, FigJam, GA and RA UPRT providers. We've got people out there not delivering the appropriate stuff. So what's the answer? Well, at the UPRT conference in August, we did a timeline here. So we got our 0-hour pilot. He's ready to rock and roll. And we've got our newly minted RPC, RPL, PPL pilot. We've got the 100-hour Top Gun guy. We've got the newly minted CPL. We got the pilot who's just got his first job, and then we've got the pilots who eventually make it to the airlines. Now, we thought at that time that there's no UPRT training for any of these people, but the airlines will mandate it. Well, it seems like we're also guilty of misinformation because we asked ourselves the question of what part of the pilot training are we providing the law of primacy? And we sort of delved into Part 61 pilot syllabus, and we found out that it's actually here, and it's actually here, and it's actually here. So there's 3 times there that we're supposed to be providing training, and one of them is enter and recover from a stall. So the stall, pretty much there's 5 stalls that you need to do in accordance with the Part 61 MOS. But most people only remember this one: straight and level flight, idle, stall, stall recovery. I just did two free seminars online in November talking about the the five most inappropriate stall recoveries, and talk to people about how the stall is built and all the elements for it. And it was really well received. But we don't get in trouble flying straight and level at idle with wings level. That's not where we get in trouble. We get in trouble with B, C, D, and E. That's where we get in trouble, but nobody remembers doing the training. So this is part of the problem. So there's a lady, Patty Wagstaff, American aerobatic champion many, many times over. And she was in the NTSB pilot training education seminar hosted by the NTSB and attended by NASA and Safe Pilots, Safe Instructors Association. And she said technology is not a substitute for basic flying skills. There was a couple of young gentlemen who were developing new technology, young kids who were doing their they were in university and doing their pilot training, and they wanted to create a device that fitted to the wing that could project onto your glasses the angle of attack information so that you could look around at circuit traffic and still have angle of attack information in your glasses. That's really cool. But Patty said technology is not a substitute for basic flying. So what she is basically saying, what about if we just taught people how to fly the aeroplanes better? That's what she's saying. So what's the future? So we've been doing a lot of work. Cass has asked me to do some work on instructors. We'll talk about that in a second. Assigning finite resources to achieve desired outcomes is challenging in today's fast-paced world. And we've developed risk assessments. I'm talking to the insurance industry. Does anybody knows about risk assessments? It's you guys. So decision makers, we use the results to RLAP. I'm not going to express that. You guys know all about that. And it's very common to hear that loss of life in small aircraft is not as big a risk as in commercial aircraft. However, I'm going to show you a chart here. Unless you're the statistic. It's a really interesting accident. This one, this was a lady who was in the States visiting a very large airport. She had 3 attempts at landing on the airport, and the controller said to her, I need you to do a low, tight turn so I can get you around to avoid the next jet that's coming in. And she rolled the aircraft over and stalled and spun the airplane into the car park. Very interesting synopsis, that one. But this is the stats. This is ATSB in Australia, 2010, 2019 for fatalities. Commercial air transport, GA, RA. So everybody says, oh, we've got to get the resources to the big boys on the field in the industry, but the problems are stemming from here. So the future is we need to provide training. Aviation training is expensive, so we need to do it right the first time. At the moment, we've pretty much got our head in the sand, but we're trying to make things happen. We've got a lot of people who are proactive, and I really appreciate the support from those who are, but it's a very small percentage. The majority of people are these people. I know there's something I'm supposed to do here, but I'm not really sure. But they continue to go flying, and this is what they're doing. I'm going to go flying today. It's a bit windy, but I'm desperate to fly, but I'm not desperate to die. So we have to be careful about those in there. Flight instructors, we talked about that. Oh, man. I just see flight instructors who come to do things, and it's amazing the degradation that's happening in our flight instructor industry. One thing that came out of the CASA workshop in October was that every single speaker said that flight instructors are the place we need to put our resources. We need to train our flight instructors better so that we can train the students and the current pilots. If we can't get the flight instructors comfortable with the stall and delivering the right information, we've got no hope at all. So this is where it needs to be focused. So the future is we can graduate, but training is the best insurance policy that we can get. And I'm sure that all of you in the industry understand that if you've got a well-trained pilot, then you've got a lower risk. There's always the shit happens, but overall, that's where we're at. And we'll talk about that in a second. So right now, where we're at is our industry needs a hand, and all the people that came to the UPRT conference in August that I run, I'm sending out information. Not a lot of feedback coming back because everybody's busy and trying to do their things. It's getting at Christmas, but there are a number of people who are pushing forward, and we need some help. So I did a talk at the conference about what are the rewards for UPRT, and we need to change the way people are thinking and utilize some of the tools that are available. So we'll just talk about this for a second. We don't want to just give everybody a little gold star. Congratulations, you did UPRT. As a matter of fact, a lot of people have declined UPRT when offered it because it doesn't give them a signature in their logbook. And it's really difficult to change the culture to say, yeah, but you might get to live and save your passengers and your family and your friends. It's a bit of a tough one. So why should RA and GA undertake UPRT? Well, there's only really 4 reasons why somebody will want to do this training. They either have to, they want to, there's a financial advantage, or it's going to make themselves look good or feel good. So what are the rewards for the different sectors of aviators? So the owners, they get to live, they get to keep their airplane in one piece, they improve their proficiency, and maybe they'll get an insurance discount. We'll talk more about this later. Operators, their staff get to live, they keep their aircraft in one piece, they keep their business operating, and maybe they'll get some insurance discounts. Pilots or renters, they get to live, they improve proficiency, and hopefully they get cost savings because the operators and the owners are getting insurance discounts. Incidentally, I did have a long chat with Ian Tate. He was really great explaining to me why we can't get renters insurance in Australia. We have, my wife and I have lost a hull due to a renter. The renter walks away and we carry the can, and that's just the way our system is. However, we are people and systems are written by people, and if we think it's important, we could probably make a ways of doing it. So I'm going to show you, I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, but this is renters insurance, again from the USA. I know it doesn't fit here, but it's just an example of what they're doing in the US, and then I'll talk about the technology that they're using. So just stand by a sec and I'll make this there.
Hi, I'm here to rent 2 Delta Sierra.
Have a great flight.
Thank you.
Hi. You look like a safe pilot.
Oh, okay.
You've completed a thorough checklist for your plane, but what about your insurance? What if safe flyers like you could save up to 35% on their insurance when they demonstrate safe flying habits in the cockpit?
That'd be great if you could somehow prove that. Hey, can you call my agent?
I'm not sure you'd believe me. I've got a better idea. Introducing Stargate. Stargate is aviation renters insurance reimagined. Powered by high-definition underwriting, the free iPad app puts data from the cockpit that pilots already capture to work, helping them fly safer with more control over the coverage they buy, which can be purchased by the month or by the year. Finally, renters insurance that fits the way you fly with less waste. Pilots can use the app to score their flights and get feedback on their performance. From the looks of things, you could receive a significant discount.
With the Stargate app, safe flyers can save up to 35% on their insurance cost. You can buy insurance directly through the Stargate app. The process is simple. The app tracks your flight safety every time you fly. The more your scores improve, the more money you can save. And while you're saving money, you're also becoming a safer pilot. Download the Stargate app today and start flying smarter.
Well, I'm pretty sure I wasn't part of your weight and balance, so it's time for me to go. I think it's safe to say you're cleared for takeoff. I've always wanted to say that.
Clear prop.
Okay, that wasn't part of it. So, this Cloud Ahoy, I don't know if anybody's ever seen Cloud Ahoy, but this is a Cloud Ahoy track that I capture with my mobile phone. I subscribe to them. I get the flight instructor package, which means that I can dissect any flight that I've been on. And the colors mean things. Red actually means slow flight or stall. And this is actually a banner flight that I did about a week and a half ago, not last Saturday, the Saturday before, and the wind was significantly strong and gusty and turbulent. Now, the app uses GPS data off your phone. You can preload. Actually, I'll just go through the slides because I made this in order. This red section is where I'm flying. When I'm flying a banner, I like to fly very slow. I've got a Maul M7, 235 horsepower, dragging around big banners, lots of drag. I'm flying at 60 knots at a high angle of attack with flap out. So it's very, very close to the stall. Here is a trace of this particular flight and one particular area of the flight. You can see the red bits here, slow flight and stall. Actually, stand by, I'll just go back there. The green is the altitude and the blue is airspeed. Now, if you notice where this vertical line is, my airspeed at that time is perceived to be 33 knots. It's using GPS, so it's really ground speed. But the thing is, I had two genuine upsets during this flight. And on this particular upset, I was flying at 1,200 feet with a rather large banner on the back, and I got a gust of wind which rolled the aircraft 90 degrees angle of bank and pitched my nose up 15 degrees. Now, because I'm a UPRT instructor, I fixed it quickly, but I went back and had a look at the data and I just went, holy man, like anybody else, they shouldn't have been out flying anyway. And it was really borderline if I was going to do the flight anyway, but we're supposed to be professional pilots. So we assess the risk and go. But this data was very interesting. You can set up the airspeeds and weight the activities for scoring. It looks at your approach angles and your speed on approach and your speed on departure and departure angles and all of that sort of stuff. And what it does is it gives you a scorecard for each flight. So I've got 3 flights here, and we've got a score of 30 for this left-hand one, 74 for the middle one, and 97 for this one. So obviously, from a risk assessment point of view, if you get somebody who's scoring 30% efficiency on their flying, they'll probably be a pretty high risk person. But if they're consistently scoring in the 90s, then they're obviously flying the aeroplane appropriately. So this is some of the technology that's available. So part of our flight school, I have a section that just does upset recovery training, and it's called Bad Attitude Advanced Flight Training. What we've been doing to date is in 2014, I discovered ICAO Doc 111 and commenced dissecting the document to pick out the airline components and try and put something together that would suit GA and RA. From then till now, we're delivering and continually developing the elements. July 2019, I had a 3-day workshop with RA Oz. Jill Bailey and Neil Schaefer came to Caboolture for 3 days, and we took the Citabria out and we flipped it inside out and upside down and talked about where in the training syllabus we can embed elements that are suitable for RAOs type aeroplanes, because most upset recovery training is not suitable for the aeroplanes because they're not certified for spinning or even built remotely to be able to do it. Between then and now, been working with a whole bunch of people who have given their time and experience, and we're trying to thrash it all out. In August 22, hosted the world's first UPRT Providers Conference, had a speaker from USA who was, his name was...
Rick Stoll.
Say again?
Rick Stoll.
Rich Stoll, yeah. Rich Stoll, his nickname's Mr. Spin. He's got the world, says to have the most spins in an aeroplane. CASA supported it, Agile and Aon. October, we went to speak at the CASA workshop. And presently, I'm working with CASA to develop UPRT training structure for all levels of pilots, ab initio through to instructors. I've delivered online stall workshops free of charge. I can't do that much longer because it just takes up so much time, so much money doing videos in the decathlon. And addressing inquiries to deliver seminars and workshops Australia-wide. So I've got some people in Sydney, some people in Adelaide, and some people in Perth. Some are instructors, some are not instructors, and they want me to go and talk to them about this information. Now, moving forward, looking ahead, I want to develop interactive online training courses presented by experienced UPRT instructors. And that's going to start happening in February next year. Training videos. I've got a Facebook page and a YouTube page, and I've got videos on there demonstrating training elements with regards to use of rudder and a whole bunch of stuff. Continue working with CASA and RAOs and the industry to ensure that the data that we deliver is correct and appropriate. So we don't want misinformation. We want to have the appropriate, up-to-date, what we think is the best. Because even though we talk about, we got the triangle, the stall triangle with speed and load and angle of attack, like the US Navy back in 1943, they thought it was speed and a little bit of load. They didn't know about angle of attack. So maybe in 2040, the industry will look back and go, oh, those guys back in 2022, they only knew about speed, load, and angle of attack, and they didn't think about X, whatever the X factor is. So continue working with CASA and RAOs to develop effective loss of control in-flight prevention training and a UPRT training structure. I'd like to do roadshows to visit locations Australia-wide to educate both instructors and pilots. We've recently started creating an association for UPRT instructors to establish the standards and liaise with the regulator. Now, what was really interesting at the CASA workshop was that CASA is looking to us as industry to advise them what they need to do. And that's a big ask with no funding. And it's really important to do that, because if CASA isn't sure, then we need to make sure that whatever we advise them is appropriate. So the idea of the Association for UPRT Instructors is to ensure that the people who are delivering UPRT have the right information. And the people in Adelaide who approached me They asked me, how much is it going to cost for you to come down and talk to us and give some of our instructors training? And I said, look, it depends. If I bring my aeroplane down, it's going to be more expensive than if you've got an aeroplane down there already. And they said, oh, we'll see if we can find a decathlon for you. And they went and saw a local flying school who had a decathlon. And the local flying school said, oh, we already deliver that training. So he can't use our aeroplane. Why don't you do the training with us? And I thought that was a fair question. I mean, I don't want to go into other people's backyards if there's somebody already doing it. But what I said to the group that I was talking to was, you need to find out what their UPRT structure is, and just ask them one simple question: Have they created their training syllabus based upon ICAO Doc 111? To which they went back and asked that question, and the response that they received was, "What's document 111?" Now, I just said, look, I can't tell you where to go and do your training. I can only tell you that if they have not read Doc 111 and all the other advisory information from other regulatory bodies, you're probably not going to get the best training with the best learning outcome, and you might get negative learning outcome. So the idea of the Association for UPRT Instructors is so that we've got people who are delivering the content in the appropriate way without misinformation. As of a couple of days ago, I'm about to post up on the internet the world's first UPRT flight instructors workshop. We're going to hold it here in Caboolture, January 20 next year. CAS has already endorsed it. When I post it up, it's going to have the CASA logo. We are looking for support. With my stall seminars in November, I've had people from the UK, USA, South Africa, New Zealand, and Norway who tuned in, and they all have indicated that they want to be involved as well. So it could be quite good and quite exciting. So I was reading an article the other day from the Aviation Safety magazine in the States that was published in 2017 and updated in 2019. There's a link there, which people can find. The summary at the end says, teaching plain vanilla usual attitudes for more than 80 years has not been successful. We need to move forward. So basically reading that, we need to do something different, because what we've been doing for the last 8 decades, or since the dawn of flight, has not been working. So again, the loss of control awareness campaign is what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise awareness, improve pilot competency, and develop a syllabus of training that we can get the law of primacy. And the idea is to reduce loss of life and hull. And if we can reduce insurance costs, that'll be good for everybody. So wanted partners to help develop change. All the white aeroplanes are what everybody's doing. We're just running around in circles doing the same thing. We've got something that we can get our teeth into, and we just need a little bit of help. We could take a chance and do nothing, but we could just change one thing. And it's not impossible. It is possible with the right support. So that's basically what I got from the UPRT side. As I mentioned, I got a whole nother piece on maintenance. I developed a maintenance safety circle. Leon's recording this, so you can have a look at that at your own time. This safety circle is broken, particularly in the RAO's light sport aircraft sector, but it is also in GA. There is a system that keeps us as safe as possible for maintenance, and I see a lot of people not following the system, including administrators Part 149. The problem that I see is training. A lot of people that I talk to who hold an RA maintenance approval, when I ask them what AC43 is, now those who know what AC43 is will know what I'm talking about. And the answer I get on a large majority of times is, what's AC43? AC43 is the standards with which we repair aircraft. And they got no idea what they're talking about. So basically, I'll just shut up now, and if anybody's got any questions, happy to answer.
Anyone? Anyone?
All right.
All right. Well, that's terrific, Paul. Thank you very much. That's I found that most informative, very interesting, and I thought I knew everything. The I guess it's for the underwriters and others to consider how they feel about this, and everybody, of course, wants an insurance discount for anything that's extracurricular. That's been my life experience in this industry, but I'm sure there's a case for some of it. I'm particularly encouraged recently to see the RAOs tackling this thing. I've had some first-hand experience with some of the things they were in, some of the accident history they had over the years. But yeah, that was a terrific presentation, Paul, and I think
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to present to your group. If anybody would like to assist, my contact details, Mike Dalton knows who I am, Julian knows, can get in contact with me, and Leon. I just really appreciate the opportunity to share the information and hopefully make you guys and girls aware about what's going on, and look forward to any support that we can get to make it all happen. Thanks.
Well, if